Hi, friends. It's Mark, and this is End Times Mark. Facebook, it's YouTube, and I like to do these little YouTubes about the last days, the end times, the last days of the age, and I just want to encourage you. If you'd like to ask questions, ask a question. Maybe we can talk about it on the YouTube, and or I can write it on Facebook. Either way, but why don't you ask some questions? I just love being about the last days and talking about that stuff. Do you remember? Some of you may remember way back in the old movies and all, where they would have somebody that would go out on the street holding a sign that would say, "Repent, the end of the world is near." And a lot of people would laugh at these people and think they were crazy, and their message was crazy. And well, I got news for you. I think a lot of those people weren't as crazy as we thought. And I remember in those days, I didn't know the Lord, so I thought they were nuts too. But I don't think they were that crazy. And I think the end really is near. Well, not the end of the earth, the end of the age. But today I just want to talk a little bit about Psalm 83 and the Psalm 83 war, which is very interesting. My daughter was asking me, how come we never knew about the Psalm 83 war before? And it's like the Lord just hasn't revealed it. I mean, it's been there for thousands of years written, but nobody ever seen it. Nobody ever seen it until recently. And what it is, it mentions a bunch of nations that, let me just read a little bit to you, then we can talk a little bit about it. And it says, "O God," it's a psalm of Asaph, and he was prophetic. "O God, do not keep silent. Be not quiet, O God, be not still. See how your enemies are astir, how your foes rear their heads. With cunning they conspire against your people. They plot against those you cherish. Come," they say, "let us destroy them as a nation, that the name of Israel be remembered no more." With one mind they plot together. They form an alliance against you. The tents of Edom, now they're the Palestinians, and the Ishmaelites of Moab, and the Hagrites, Jebel, Ammon, and the Amalek, Philistia, with the people of Tyre. Even Assyria has joined them to lend strength to the descendants of Lot. Now, all these nations they mention, these are the old tribal names back in the Old Testament. And I guess people just never really put any thought into it. But these names are actually the names of all the nations that border Israel, like Lebanon and Syria and Egypt and Saudi Arabia and Jordan, all the nations that border Israel. Now, interesting part is these nations want to come against Israel and destroy Israel. And Asaph, as you go on in the psalm, is asking the Lord, to destroy these nations. And it's what is interesting, which makes us realize that it's probably a war that's going to be happening very soon, is because if you look ahead to the Ezekiel war, the war of Gog and Magog, that people have known about for a long time, and that mentions Iran, which is called Persia. They did change the name in the 1930s. I think it was 1938. From Persia to Iran, and Russia and Turkey and Germany. These nations in the Ezekiel prophecy come against Israel, and God destroys them. But it's interesting, in the Ezekiel war, not one of these nations in Psalm 83 is mentioned. These are all the border nations around Israel. This is really fascinating. In order for the nations in the Ezekiel war, Iran, Russia, and all, to come down against Israel and stand on the mountains of Israel, they would have to go through these nations that border Israel. Well, if these nations aren't part of that war, they're just saying, "All right, come on in." But these nations hate Israel too, so why aren't they part of it? So it would seem that these nations don't exist anymore. That and then also in the Ezekiel war, they've come to take a great spoil. Well, if you look at Israel today, it's the size of New Jersey. It isn't exactly a great spoil. I mean, there are some tomatoes there. But they don't really have an awful lot. They got some good salt in the Dead Sea, but there is going to be a great spoil. They're going to consume these nations that border them around their country, And that would be all the land that God promised them in Genesis. God promised them land. And if they did take all that land, Jordan and Syria and Saudi Arabia, they would also be taking the oil fields. And taking the oil fields, now they're going to have a great spoil in them. They're going to become a mega superpower. And it all fits together like a puzzle. Really, really cool. I mean, study it. Check it out. So it's a Psalm 83 war. These nations, and if you look today on the news, these nations are up and evil. They're just crazy. They're just crazy over there. They want to destroy Israel. And if they come against Israel, Israel will come against them and take them. I've heard that Israel never starts a war, but they always end it. And I mean, remember, Israel is God the Father's wife, and God doesn't take too good about people attacking His people. And once they take those nations, then we're set for the Ezekiel war. Because then there's a great spoil to take. Those other nations don't exist anymore. The Iran, Russia, Turkey, who are not mentioned in Psalm 83, but are mentioned in Ezekiel 39 and 38, then they can come. But it's fascinating. If you start looking into it, I've just recently looked into this, but we know things are coming quickly. I mean, the blood moons are on the horizon. Remember, the blood moons that start in 2014 in the history, which they've happened 3 times in the last 500 years. And always, the year before, Israel is attacked, and Israel wins. So if it holds suit, 1 year before 2014 is 2013, do the math. What year is it now? Israel is probably going to be attacked this year. It could very well be the Psalm 83 war. Traditionally, these wars don't last very long in Israel. They take 6 days, and it's over. But there's all through the Old Testament talks about Damascus, Syria, becoming a heap of ruins. That whole city is completely wiped out and destroyed, and nothing can even exist there anymore. So it's very possible, and this is speculation, that Israel is going to drop an atomic bomb on Damascus. Well, how else can it not be inhabitable? Right now, they're destroying it themselves over there in Syria. The king of Syria is bombing it. But I don't think it's going to become uninhabitable just because he throws a few bombs on Damascus. But it'll be interesting is just to watch and see. I feel like we're sitting in a theater as the church, just watching what's going to happen. We have the Psalm 83 war coming up. We have the Ezekiel war coming up. We have the blood moons coming up. The tetrad, the blood moons falling on the feasts of Israel in 2014 and 2015, and centered right in the middle between them is the black sun. And that would represent judgment on the nations. So it is really fascinating. We also have an asteroid on the 15th of February this month. This is fact from NASA. That's going to go within 17,200 miles of Earth. According to them, there's no chance it's going to hit us. But hopefully they're not like the weatherman with their percentages. But and then it's going to be on this side of the satellites. And then in the fall, we got a big comet that's going to go overhead, and they think that could be pretty bright. But there's a lot of signs in the sky happening now. The solar flares from the sun. Remember, it talks about in Revelation the sun scorching men with fire. That's very possibly solar flares. A solar flare from the sun, if it went directly aimed at the Earth, would connect with 1/3 of the Earth, which Revelation talks about 1/3 of the trees burning up in that when the sun is scorching men with fire. And probably a lot of people will die when that happens. But all these things are happening. The solar flares are getting worse and worse. There was one in 2012 that went under the Earth that missed us. So, but these things are happening more and more. So we're seeing all these signs in the sun, moon, and stars. So get ready. Let's ready for a ride. There's no reason for Christians to fear anything. We don't have to be afraid of anything because we're going to go home in the right time. Jesus said when you start seeing these things happen, look up. Your redemption's drawing near. Look up. Your time is coming. But be found about your Father's business. We got to be found working for the Lord, loving people. What's working for the Lord? Loving people and loving God. That's working for the Lord. And so just rejoice. Everything's going to be okay. Thank you for listening today. Remember, send me questions. Send me questions. We can talk about it. God bless.